This is a tutorial in Photoshop. We are going to see how to set up a basic project and make sure that you are aware about specific commands in the interface, and in addition how to implement some techniques to achieve certain goals. So to begin with the project, we need to create a new settings where here we define in this panel the width, height and resolution of our project, plus some additional information about color mode, background contents, and so on. The only thing that we will change here is the resolution, the size of our project. We are going to use a high definition standard size, which is of 2080 by 720. We create the project, and now we have on our main panel the size and the shape of our project. This is the standard high definition rectangular size. And the project at the moment consists of a background layer. You see on this bottom right side of the panel the layers that exist in your projects. At the moment we have a background layer which is locked. This means that sometimes we are giving the option to lock certain aspects that we don't want to change like by mistake and so on. In addition, here we have a small eye icon that indicates the visibility of the project. Here you will see that I'm not able to do something with that, as I have to unlock it first. When I click the unlock button, I'm able to set up various functions such as the visibility of my layer. If I right click on the layer, I have some additional options where later on we're going to see a couple of them. For the next part, I'm going to explain a couple of things about the interface. Starting from the home panel, you will see here we have various options about transformation and navigation into our project. The toolbar on the left side includes the main tools that we will need to develop a lot of aspects of the project, so we will be using many of them frequently. In 2020, you will see that there is a nice feature where you can have short videos that explain what each of these tools do. Following that, on the right side of the panel, we have options to set up color, swatches, gradients and patterns, various elements important in creating our composition. Finally, in this panel right here, we have properties for our layers and adjustments we'll discuss later on. For starters, we will bring a new image into our project. You will see that at this point I haven't saved anything into my project. I have an untitled one name here. It might be a good idea to save the project so that we can create a folder, a directory where the project is stored together with any assets, images and so on. You will see that I named the PSD file as untitled one. Of course, if you want, you can change the name of your project. Actually, I should have done this previously. So I'll redo this part. File, save as, and here I'm able to rename my project. Okay, as a Photoshop, save. If it already exists, it will replace it, and that's it. This is my collage example PSD, that it is the source file for my composition. Okay, now for the next step is, as I mentioned earlier, to bring some images into our composition. I have found some images here that I thought it might be interesting to use them in this instance. And the first thing that we're going to use is like this statue PNG. I may rename it to make it easier to read, and I will remain this one as well. Great. Now, to import an image into our Photoshop, we can just drag and drop my image from the preview window to here, like that. And of course, there are other options we'll discuss later. Now, you'll see that there is my image imported into my project, and there are these blue lines. This means that I should be able to control the size and how the project is, how the file is imported into my project. This doesn't change the original resolution of the image. The original resolution remains the same unless I rasterize the image, and we'll discuss a little bit later about rasterization. So here, as I said, I'm able to change the size, and as you noticed, this will, if I drag this point, it will create this distortion. To avoid this, I can just go back to the original point, and I can click this link where if I click it, it will maintain the aspect ratio, and now my image, it will always be changed uniformly. This is suggested that you import all your assets in a uniform way, even if you need smaller size, because this is going to define the distortion, and we don't want to have any distortion into our images. Great. So now if we press enter, the image is in our project. Now I can move the image around. You see here that the position, the move tool is selected, and I'm able to move my image around, which has been already created into this new layer that it's named right here, statue. Okay. Here is my image. You may see that the background of my image is white, and in this case we might need to consider that perhaps it is not important, because if I wanted to implement this statue image into my composition and to make it blend with all the rest elements, such as the background, for example, at the moment I'm not able to do it. To demonstrate what I mean, I will go to the layer and I will change the color of my background. I can do this from the blending options, where I am able to set various properties such as a color overlay, and if this is clicked, the original color of the background is going to be ignored, and this color is going to be used alternatively. If I click this box right here, I will be able to change to a different color that I want. There are other options that include the gradient overlay. This might allow us to create some smoother transitions, such as from the middle outwards. We see this gradient style that has been created for us. I will close my image, and you will see the gradient that it is using a radial function to start from a lighter color to a darker as it goes towards the edges. If I put my statue back again, you'll see that now there is one problem that we have to disregard all this white background. How would we do this in Photoshop? There are various different ways. However, in order to be able to manipulate the pixels of the specific layer, you would have to rasterize the layer that was mentioned previously. To rasterize the layer, we have to click on our layer here, and there is an option saying that this layer has to be rasterized. And this is important because when we import the image in the fashion that I did earlier, the image was imported as a smart object, a specific function of Photoshop, where in order to edit this smart object, that object has to be rasterized first. So it corresponds to pixels. I select the rasterized layer. Now I am able to select parts of the image and delete them or manipulate them in any way that I want. First, I will go to the rectangular mark tool. As you can see from this video, we can select parts of the images and manipulate it in certain ways. So the first thing that I may want to do is, let's say I want to cut this part that includes this black line, right? So I'm bringing this rectangle here and I press delete. All right, now you will see that the white part, it was deleted from the image. Of course, this I can do it for any part of the image, and this will destroy my image, and I don't want to do this. So I go back, and I am at this part where I want to cut all of these parts around the image perimeter. And now this might be a little bit trickier because I have to go onto all of these small details and repeat the same process. Photoshop allows us to have easier functions such as the lasso tool or the magnetic lasso. It allows a certain task to be much faster and easier. But in this case, I will use an even easier function, which is the magic wand tool. By selecting this tool and clicking here in the white area, you see that all of the image between the white background and the foreground has been selected with these lines. This means that I'm able to manipulate now my pixels, and if I press delete, these pixels will be deleted and I'm able to just use only the foreground of my image, which is the useful part, and this is what I want to do. Okay, now you will see that these lines, they are still selected, and I have to deselect them either by pressing the left mouse key, or if it is selected to right click and deselect. Great. So one thing that I want to do at the moment is manipulate the size, the transformation of the statue. So I'm going to press Command and T, and this will bring this blue line indicating that I'm able to change the size of my image in a similar way as I did in the beginning when I imported my image into the project. Great, so my image will be like this big. At the moment, I will place it in the center, and actually I'm going to zoom in a little bit to my project and check if there are any issues or problems. It looks okay. So for the next part, I would like to add something to my project. Perhaps for this statue, I could put some very cool sunglasses. Okay. And I'm going to do a Google search on sunglasses. You'll notice that in my search terms, I entered the keyword I'm looking for and also .png. This means that my image search will include PNG images, and the PNG images usually when you do a Google search, they include images where the transparency of the background has already been set, and that means that I don't need to do it again in the same way I just did it in my current image. I will look around a little bit and I will select perhaps these sunglasses. One very good detail that you need to be aware of, very important detail, is when you're searching for images online, the size that it appears here in this corner is really important, and you need to ensure that it's going to be appropriate to use in your current project. It shouldn't be too much higher than your project, because this will add a lot of additional size to the whole project. Or if it is too small, you might get problems about pixelation and distortion. You want to get an image that it has very good quality and the size is close to your project's size. So for these sunglasses, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put them in my project in a different way. So I'm just going to copy the image. If you notice, I'm using a Google Chrome, which is suggested for your browsers. And I copy the image. Now, in this case, if I copy it, I can paste it directly into Photoshop. And that's the original size of the project. And you will notice now that the layer, it is already rasterized. Okay, so I don't need to do it again. It's already rasterized. And you will also see that there is no background to my image. It means that it has already been processed, and as it is a PNG file, it allows transparency to be included into its settings. So for these classes here, I may have the problem. You see that there are some parts that they don't look very good. In this case, when I want to delete some of these details, I can very easily come and use the erase tool, and the erase tool can help me to delete these parts that they don't look good. I don't want to include them into my project. Okay, so I'm just going to click and drag and somehow smooth it out so it looks a little bit nicer. Okay, of course there are some issues here that I can consider about it after I resize it, so that I can see how it really looks like, because there is a chance that these details, they don't appear into my project. I may smooth it out a little bit here as well. Okay. And a little bit here. Okay, so it is fine. Let's say I can smooth out this bit. And maybe this bit here too. So it doesn't look too ugly. Okay, now I can resize my glasses. Command T, right? And I can resize them and make sure that they fit into here. Okay, maybe too big. Size a little bit more. We can further adjust the shape that we have, the image, by clicking on the command key and dragging that specific point of our shape. Okay, so we can manipulate each one of these parts separately to make it look much nicer. And also we can rotate when your mouse is on this corner and the arrows, they are curved. You can click and this will rotate your image like that, or you can click inside the shape, right click, and you can use different options to change how your shape looks like. You can rotate it, flip it, and so on. Okay, I press enter, and now this is my shape, sorry, like that. Okay, so this is our project at the moment. I will be using an additional layer, which is this ribbons here. Okay, I paste them, and I'm going to use the magic wand tool again, clicking here and delete. Now you see that I have to convert first to a rasterized layer and then to apply the command. Adobe Photoshop reminds me that the image I just pasted, it is a smart object at the moment. So I need to come back to my ribbons and rasterize them. And now I am able to delete the background. And it looks okay. There are some issues here, and I can come here directly and either select the magic wand tool again, or in this case where it will be really difficult, I might just come and use the eraser. I can right click and there is the settings for the eraser where I can control the size, how big the eraser will be, and the hardness, if it will create some smooth edges or if it will just delete all the pixels that they are within its circle. So in this case, I'm going to use a hardness of 20 and a pixel of something really small that it can be maybe 3. Okay, so I can come here and click to my ribbons. I think I have to make it a little bit larger. Okay. I had to do this first. Deselect the previous command. So I have to delete this and delete this too. Okay. You will see it's a little bit more smooth now, more consistent. I guess the rest of my shapes look really, really good, which is great and very convenient function. We don't have to do this manually. The quality may not be perfect, but it's good enough. Now I want to experiment with something. I may want to duplicate my layer to make it a little bit more intense. If you see closer these details, you will see that when I have pasted an additional layer, it becomes a little bit more intense, and I may as well do this. So I have selected these two layers, and I'm going to link them together. I can merge the layers like this, and now the layers there like one layer that consists of these two additional layers. This is a preference to avoid sometimes layers that maybe you don't need them to be all the time there. One thing I will add at the moment is I will come to the ribbons and go to the blending options and drop some shadow, just to experiment and see how it will look like. It gives it some dimensionality, and the same thing with my statue. I may come and do some blending and drop a shadow here. I can control the opacity, I can control the color of my shadow, distance, and so on. I don't want it to be too much, just a little bit to create this impression of texture and dimension. Okay, cool. One thing I want to do in addition is go to my ribbons, resize them a little bit, and make sure that I could use some parts and separate them and put them on the background, because right now they are right on the face of my statue. I can select all of the 3 layers together and move them a little bit lower, perhaps here. Okay, and in order to change the way that these ribbons behave, I can select the ribbons and come and get a different tool to cut and separate the layers. I will use the lasso tool, and with the lasso I can just click and go around the part that I would like to separate. I will just take this middle part, I can cut it and paste it, and this will create a new layer where I can name ribbons 2, for example. All right. One thing that we didn't mention here is that the order of the layers is important, and this means that the statue is before the sunglasses and these 2 ribbons. If I want these ribbons to appear on before the statue, it means that I have to move the layer below the statue. Okay, I may want to move it first, perhaps somewhere here, and then move it on the background like that. And if I want, I can resize it and make it come also like this. Okay, and the same thing, of course, I can repeat the process with the other layers. For the last bit that I would like to mention, oh, here I moved the background, and that's a good excuse to make sure that my layer is going to be locked now. Okay, and this means that I will not be able to move it anymore as I did just now. For the last part of the tutorial, this is what we have at the moment. I'm going to save this, and it will be saved on the collageexample.psd, and then I would have to show you how to export it as an image, because at the moment the collage example that exists here, it can open only from Photoshop. If I want to export it, I would have to either use Save As, and on this dialog box I can save under different formats, JPEG, PNG, and so on. Or I can just use an quick export as PNG. So if I do this, it's going to give me the similar dialog box with less options, of course, And if I press save, this image will appear now on my preview window. So thanks for watching, and we will continue in the next tutorial with some different Photoshop techniques that you can use into your projects. Thank you for watching.